G'day. You're watching the Loose Gadgies. Not sure if that was proper Australian, mine. Anyway, got me Taz cup because I'm drinking coffee. Sleeping patterns all over the shop at the minute. What we're doing today, dyslexia with Mark. A little bit of ADHD research there. Got some questionnaires to fill in. I'm going to approach the topic, cover some strategies, some bits and pieces that I've picked up, because there's definitely some ADHD in there for me, which is part of the spectrum, part of the autism spectrum anyway, so I was bound to have some. But I did the test myself, it was interesting. And we'll do that at some point during, so, see, you've got your Keep It For Best t-shirt up in the background there. Nice bit of background.
Got me keep it for best. Yeah, I decided not to wear it this week. Keep it for best. Yeah, like that.
Keeping it for best. Literally.
Yeah.
Ooh, did you
Yeah.
like the... I took your advice. I put the Shut Up You t-shirt out there. Shut Up You.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I was trying to remember. You said something about what was said before that or after that. Shut up, you, or shut up. Yeah, there was something. I can't
My
remember what you
mum's always
said.
like either shut your face, shut up you, that kind of thing.
Yeah,
Because I was saying to her, well, if the majority agree, there must be some truth in it. Shut your face. So, well, shut up you. Eat your
yeah.
dinner.
Shut up, you, or I'll smash your face in.
Aye. Eat your dinner.
Yeah,
I mean, she was
shut up,
laughing. She was laughing, but,
man.
you know, aye. It's still a new bingo bag, though, so it's not all bad. She's still using it for the bingo.
Oh, I forgot. I forgot to tell you. I took me. Obviously, I took it to Denmark this week, and Carsten grabbed it,
Hey.
and he was like, "Ooh, I like that." And he's like, "These are very in fashion. These,
Yeah.
And, me in fashion. I know nothing
Aye.
about fashion." And he was like, because obviously his branding, they're thinking about creating giveaways, and he was like, and he scanned the barcode to sort of work out where it's coming from and what he can do for his
Well,
business. So yeah,
you could buy one as a sample. You could buy one.
that's it. Yeah, we'll ship it.
Ship it. Yeah,
Hey, can we ship them
Yeah.
to Europe or not?
yeah they've got. There's more than one distribution centre. There's a couple. There's a few in sort of Europe and whatnot. It's a large company. But the one for us is primarily the UK is in the Isle of Wight. But there's some
Is it?
further into Europe that will ship in Europe. So yeah, you can place the order in one place and it'll go wherever. I think there's some over in the US as well, if I remember right. So yeah, it'll go anywhere. It'll go anywhere. Well, what's the crack? Good week? Copenhagen
Yeah,
work out all right?
yeah. I was in Denmark this week. Unfortunate 8 hour stay in the airport last night.
Ooh.
Didn't get home till 1:30. Got up at
8 hours,
7.
was that?
So I'm a bit like you. Me sleeps around.
Yeah, I haven't been doing well on the old sleep front. I don't know why. I think I'm plagued with trying to sort some work out. It's a bit random. I've got all kinds of meetings coming up next week, and it's getting people to sort of commit. I seem to have plenty on the cards. It's just getting people to go, yep, let's do that. Or let's do that then. It's like, yeah, I will do that. When? Well, I've got this to do, and then this, and that, and then I tell you what, I'll give you a ring. I mean, you know what I'm like with, expectations. I go nuts when I don't know what. I don't have any expectations set. I need to know where I'm at, where I'm going, what I'm doing, and I'm tempted to just go. You know what? I'm going to bin you all off, and I'm going to go off and pick up some other large piece of work. Then you'll just have to wait. But I won't.
Yeah.
I won't,
I
because
think-
I'll just end up staying up late and doing that work as well as I do.
Yeah, it was the same situation in Denmark where we were discussing the rest of this year, and a bit like you, I need clarification for planning in my mind. It's easier for me to cope if I've got it. To the point where I had to say, we need to sit down and plan this till the end of the year. Actually, we got the solution, and we made an agreement. I would invoice up front. So
So you'll get a retainer.
So yeah, I'm basically they're committing to the rest of the year and will pay up front.
That's good.
So it
That's
is,
good. You
and
know you're right.
you know how that works for us in terms of our
Yeah.
mindset. That makes us
Yeah,
feel a little bit more
settles you
relaxed,
down,
doesn't it?
yeah, and then you go, right, well, I know that's definitely happening. I've definitely got this. So if I do anything else, I've actually got all those slots already plugged in. So if I do anything else, I know I'm not double booking or missing anything out or having to hold on to anything.
Yeah,
I can just go and plan it and know that I'm not interrupting anything. So, yeah,
yeah.
totally get it. Totally get it.
So nice.
So, you ready?
Are you sitting comfortably?
Are you sitting comfortably?
So we'll just give the background. What are we about to do?
Right. Well, as you said the other day, you were using your neurology as a crutch or as an excuse to do or not do, etc. Which, ironically, isn't how you work day to day, and it's certainly not the kind of behaviour you encourage in other people. So we thought we'd dig deeper into how my brain works at some point, dig deeper into yours, and then we'd come up with some strategies, because what is Mark without strategies? It's not Mark. It's one of the things you do in it. And if anybody can plan this out, and if we did it on a podcast, then and all these strategies work and make sense, there's plenty of people out there with similar brains, and maybe they can take some of that on and use it for themselves. You know, as we discover what works and what doesn't. And we've got a couple of guests coming up, so that means we've got one next week, one the week after. So we've got this 2-week break for you to go away and play with some of the strategies that we'll talk about today, and come back and see how you've been getting on with them. And ultimately, you could pass them on to Robin as well and see how she gets on with them and make it an overall positive. But you did make mention of ADHD a while back, and I was like, well, a lot of these things have crossovers, so it may be worth exploring. Did you watch that video, the YouTube video I sent you, where he gives you a rough idea of how to diagnose yourself? He gives you some pointers.
When did you send me
I
that?
copied and pasted the link in there. WhatsApp. Well, it's a good while ago now.
Yeah.
It was probably a month, 2 months ago. It was from a Harley Street doctor. It was something I watched once.
Right.
And I thought, oh, that all makes sense. That makes sense. And he ties it together and says why these things are relevant. And he said these are just sort of preliminary questions we might ask to screen people out. So it's not a definite yes, but it is a definite no. So if we can give some definite no's out and then just have this pool of people we need to test, it works. Right? So this is what this symptom checklist that I've got, which is a proper screening test for ADHD. It's a self-report scale version 1.1, so it's been revised. There's I can put it out on Facebook as well if people want to download it, and I can tell you where I got it from. There are a couple of ADHD organisations in the UK, and they offer this test as just a bit of guidance, and I think sometimes it settles your mind if you don't fit into this, and you at least think, well, that's not I'll try a different direction. So it'll either give you something to chat to your GP about, or a definite no.
Is there a risk of like reverse bias? Because I might want to have it. So
Well, this is why I think it's best that you don't see this questionnaire, and I don't tell you which answers give you a yes. So this is basically a grid. Question is on the line, and then it's got columns along here saying never, rarely, sometimes, often, very often. And alongside each question, this grid has either a white box or a grey box. Now, if you hit the white box, then that's a no. If your answer lands in one of the grey boxes, then that's a yes. It contributes towards the diagnosis. Now, if you get, there's 6 of these initial questions. If you get 4 or more, then you should consider chatting to your GP. Now, it could be that on question 3, never is white. So if you say never to that question, then right, well that's fine. That's what a normal person would say. A normal person. That's what someone without this would say. Or maybe it's never is grey on this particular question. But you won't know until the end. I'll email you this so you can actually see what it looks like. But you won't know whether you're picking the right answer or not. So you shouldn't necessarily be able to bias it. Now the second section is about frequency and habitual behaviour. So it then gives you an idea of maybe the severity or and how pervasive it is in your life by going through some of these behavioural things. So we'll kick this off then. Bearing in mind I've done this, and it fits me. I did this with some others as well, just to give a rough test of what it's like and how it comes out. So, question 1. How often you can give us a number from 1 to 5 if it's easier, rather than saying never, rarely, sometimes, often, or very often. You can do so. You can do 1 for never, and 5 is very often.
5 very often. Right.
So I will. Oh, I've got my pen. And I'll mark down the answers. Right. So, how often do you have trouble wrapping up the final details of a project once the challenging parts have been done?
5. Fucking hell. Pardon my French.
So once you've done all the interesting bits, you're like, yeah, I'm the same.
It's not bright and sparkly anymore.
Yeah. Where's the challenge? So, 2, how often do you have difficulty getting things in order when you have to do a task that requires organisation?
4.
How often do you have problems remembering appointments or obligations?
2.
And when you have a task that requires a lot of thought, how often do you avoid or delay getting started?
4.
And how often do you fidget, or I can probably answer this for you. How often do you fidget or squirm with your hands or feet when you have to sit down for a long time?
5.
And how often do you feel overly active and compelled to do things like you are driven by a motor?
5.
Well, you scored in 5 out of 6 boxes. You only got a white on 1 question. The rest of them were all in, the scoring category. And not all of them are like the same. They're all sometimes. If you'd said sometimes, that would have been in the white, so it wouldn't have counted, right? So.
Yeah.
Right. So next part. How often? I'll start a new bit here. How often do you make careless mistakes when you have to work on a boring or difficult project?
5.
How often do you have difficulty keeping your attention when you are doing boring or repetitive work?
6.
Yeah, I can totally identify with that. How often do you have difficulty concentrating on what people say to you, even when they're speaking to you directly?
What did you say? 5.
You managed that one.
I mentioned that on the stuff, didn't I? That if I was speaking to you and there was a conversation just to the right of me, I'll listen to their conversation while nodding to you.
I do the same. If I hear a word that catches me, I'm like, I'm off.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah. And that like you'll say a word and that'll trigger me to have another
yes,
thought, and I'll go
yeah.
off somewhere, and then I'll realize, oh sugar, I'm not listening to him.
And the same with music.
I have to bring it back.
If someone says a couple of words that are lyrics from some song, and they happen to say them in the same way that they're sang, so in the same cadence or something like, all of a sudden I've got that song in my head for the rest of the day.
Yeah, there's a song there
Yeah.
somewhere. That's
Yeah.
when we say that phrase.
Yeah,
there's a song
it's
there
like that.
somewhere.
It's funny. Kelsey's the same. There are other times she's burst out into song
Yeah.
in the middle of the office, and what are you doing? Oh, I just heard a thing. I just got the song stuck in my head. So I'm exactly the same. Exactly the same. I've got to be careful. So, how often do you misplace or have difficulty finding things at home or at work? How often have you lost something? Did you lose it?
I've lost it. I would say a 3 actually, and I'll go middle part with that one.
And how often are you distracted by activity or noise around you?
5.
Yeah, me too. Me too. It's a learned skill trying to keep your focus here rather than off.
I've tried everything from music to, you say, whale noises, everything.
Yeah, the lot.
And actually, I think I've settled on at the minute I'm on a good one, which is basically if I can find an interesting podcast and play that in the background, I can get good focus on
Yeah,
both.
I find that if I try to engage my habit for rabbit holes, when I just go down and I zone out, if I can get something that really captures me attention, then some of the other habits don't have a look in. Like they can't intrude on what I'm doing. So if I'm really gripped on what I'm watching, I listen to, movie, podcast, wherever it is, I'm like, aye. There could be a fire outside, a bomb could go off, and I'm like, nah, this is...
I'm back into the chimp paradox at the moment, and I really think it's very much about quietening my monkey, So
I find sometimes going a bit ballistic on something. Let the monkey out for a bit and just let it just go ballistic on playing some daft game, watching a bunch of stupid videos, tire myself out, and then I can crack on with, or tire that little guy out, and then I can go off and do something serious.
Yeah. That's just negotiating with him, and that's saying, right, you go and have your fun now, and by the way, when you're finished with your fun, we're going back to work.
Yeah, so I'll go off, watch some daft, funny video, keep an eye on the time, spend an hour doing some silly stuff, and I'm go, right. And I think, right, I'm refreshed. I've done something different. I've had a break. Crack on, yeah. So, that was... so, how often do you leave your seat in meetings or other situations in which you are expected to remain seated? So often do you get up when you're supposed to be sat down?
I'm a walker, me, in meetings. I'm a 4 on that, easily. I just get up and start expressing myself on the board.
I love grabbing a pen and faffing with the whiteboard. Love it.
Yeah. The client I was with this week, the Danish guy, and I just get up and I just start drawing pictures and analogies on his whiteboard. And it almost and I get enthused while I'm standing there, and it just makes the subject really much more interesting.
Makes it
for me.
motor along.
Yeah.
Gets all the connections going. Yeah. So what number on you there? 5? 4 or 5?
I said 4, didn't I? I don't know.
I thought you said 4. Right. And how often do you feel restless or fidgety?
5 and 5 plus
right.
plus.
You and Kels are the same. Ants in your pants.
Yeah.
How often do you have difficulty unwinding and relaxing when you have time to yourself?
I
always got to be doing something.
I just keep it simple. I'm just going to say 5 because I don't. Interesting story here. So when my dad had a flood at his house last year, and I went to help him. Unusually, I had to stay in his house overnight, and he couldn't stand it because I couldn't. I was basically up and down like a bride, and he just thought I was just over fidgety and over moving and
full of beans. As my mum would say, full of beans.
Yeah, I mean, like last night, I drove back from the airport, got in the house at 1:30. I didn't have any time to unwind, and I couldn't sleep. And that's not like me. I just didn't have that. That period. I really enjoy the period between, so let's say 7 and 10, where I can actually try and relax. And I couldn't do it last night, so I couldn't sleep.
You're used to having sort of your off ramp where you're slowly guiding yourself down
Yeah.
towards bedtime.
You basically told your body that, okay, you've done your work between 6 and 6, yeah, and now it is relaxing time because we're moving into the zone where we need to sleep. So, but I didn't have that zone last night. It wasn't there.
Totally out of kilter. So, then, how often do you find yourself talking too much when you're in social situations?
Yeah, 4.
Yeah.
Definitely. I sent, even when I was talking to people this week, when you can sense it in your brain that I need to shut up now.
Took me a while to get that.
We've talked about that, haven't we? In terms of working out when that very question is finished, and we haven't gone off a tangent on another
Yeah, I was
subject.
still learning it in interviews up until last year, and even in some social situations, I'll just go off, and that little sort of conversation monitor that sits there with a clipboard, sort of going, sometimes is just absent. There are times when I'm just, even on the podcast, that the number of times I've cut like 10, 15 minutes out of just when I've gone off, really fascinated with the subject and went, oh, this and that, I mean, that chat on AI. I cut about 20 minutes out of, it was an hour and 20 minutes we recorded, and I uploaded an hour. And the majority of that was me.
Yeah.
There might have been a few seconds, a minute or so was you, but I had to chop a bit of you off because I'd chopped me off, and if I'd left you in, it would have been out of context. So, because it was replying to something I had, so it was mostly my fault. So I took out 20 minutes of me just explaining more stuff than I needed to about AI because I found it fascinating, and I went down a rabbit hole, a proper rabbit hole.
A side story to that. Carl's mum messaged me and says you should get in touch. She watched the episode.
Oh, that I should get in touch with him.
Vice versa, innit? It's one of them. She enjoyed that piece that you said.
I enjoyed working with him. I enjoyed teaching him.
Yeah.
And I actually remember you took something you said to him on board, like, directly to heart. And I'm trying to remember the exact phrase, but you basically took him to one side when you'd agreed that I'd take him on, and you'd sat him down and basically said, learn everything. I can't remember that there was an exact phrase you used, and he's never forgotten it. He's never forgotten it since you said it, but you basically said, you're a sponge. Like, learn everything. In that sort of nodding kind of way, like, this is going to be more than you realise, perhaps, in terms of where it might take you and all that. And he did, though. I'll give him his dues. He learned everything I taught him, and he took some fun in it. And he's been one of the fastest learners in terms of learning how to write software and understanding how software works and all the little bits around it, and what he's since done with it and stuck with it. I'm impressed. I was impressed with how deep he got into it and how unafraid he was. Once it clicked with him, he ran with it. And then he just kept asking questions, and I just kept answering them. And then pointing them. And then I'd put some daft challenge on the whiteboard. Just make something up. What's that mean? You go and work it out. But he took it how it was meant. Like, I think you can do this. Have a go. And I'd just make him harder and harder each time. And then set him some daft task. Right, what are these? Now, I don't need it, but you'll need to know it at some point, so go and write one of them. Enjoyed it. It was the first time I realised that I could actually teach.
You got me thinking there about what we're doing right now, and we obviously discussed the other week about my drinking, and I think I think I've managed to suppress a lot of the symptoms through drinking, and now that I haven't got alcohol in my system at all, the symptoms rise to the
That's
top.
a fair shout. It could
Hmm.
even be. It could have even been one of your drivers to drink like
Yeah,
that as
yeah.
a
And
self
it just came to
medication.
me there, and I was just thinking, yeah, I'm just thinking that when you talked about the restlessness on an evening and that, I wish I never used to get it because it was medicated.
But what you can take away from that is it's proof that you can come up with another way of doing it. Because
Mm.
I've seen you when we've been sitting watching the telly. It'll get to like 10:30, and you're struggling to stay awake because you're programmed to do it.
Oh yeah,
And when we used to stay up late and watch another movie, you could see you really wanting to stay awake. Me and Michael sat on the
yeah,
sofa, and you were flagging, and we had to take it as a
yeah,
hint
yeah,
uh, to go.
yeah. Data. To use the computer analogy from the book, the database is finished for the day, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. All the jobs have stopped running.
Yeah. It needs a reboot
Aye,
overnight.
I use that a lot because it takes me a long time to boot up. Once I'm up and running,
Yeah.
I'm flying all day, but it takes me a long time to get started in the morning. I'm useless for the first hour thereabouts. Right, we've got a few left. Just
Yep.
three left. When you're in a conversation, I think you've answered this one. When you're in a conversation, how often do you find yourself finishing the sentences of people you are talking to before they can finish them themselves? I do that. I irritate a lot of people with that.
I Yeah, I have to. So I think I've trained myself on this one now through the stuff that I've done over the last 5 years. I would say I would have said I was a five before that. I'd now say I was a two, but that's through training.
See, I've always saw that as enthusiasm. I'm proving that I'm listening, that I'm engaged, and that I'm interested in what you're saying by preempting, but I didn't realise that actually, mate, you're interrupting. But interrupting's something I still do. Still something. It's still a skill I can't fully. I don't know if I ever will. I don't know if I can ever really get those cues right. Other than just waiting and hoping for the best. But then that can sometimes stifle a conversation when you just sit quiet. Because then it can look like you're waiting for your turn, and that's not how a conversation should run. So getting that balance is. I've just accepted I might never get that nailed, and I'm happy. I'm happy with that. People get used to it, I suppose. And how often do you have difficulty waiting your turn in situations where turn taking is required?
Turn
Yeah,
taking
in
is
anything,
required.
are you impatient when it comes to taking a turn?
I have a genuine impatience built into me, and an anxiety about when it's going to be my turn. So yeah, I would say that's a four. The anticipation of your turn.
Aye. And last one. How often do you interrupt others when they are busy?
Yeah, that's four. Yeah. So if you know me, knocking on your office door.
That's the first thing that popped into my head was every morning at _8 or 8 o'clock,
Yeah.
depending. I would hear the coffee machine going, and I'd try and prepare myself because the coffee machine was right next door. I could hear the thing. Is that him? Is that him? I looked at the clock. Is that him? Oh, I didn't necessarily. It was the volume though. Morning.
Yeah.
Oh, wait. I'm still waking up, and you're like maximum morning person. Maximum.
Yeah. I put it down to probably a wanting to be liked. So you're looking as you're going towards people's desks. You're looking to them to see can you get eye contact,
Yeah.
and as soon as you get eye contact, you're in.
You're full on social. Always have been,
Yeah.
and getting people included, and making sure everyone feels noticed. That's one of your best management skills. I think was you always made everybody feel part of the thing that we were doing.
Mm.
So out of that, There were another 11 questions there, and 9 of them were in the zone. So you've got 9 out of 11 there, and you had 5 out of 6 there. So you had 14. Oh, I don't know if I added this up wrong. You've got one. Oh yeah, hold on. 2,
15.
2, 5.
So 12. 12 out of 15? That's one of the things that doesn't affect me on my maths.
15 out of 18. I miscounted one of the things. So you've got 15 out of 18 in total.
Right.
So, pretty good screener. It's worth a chat. It's worth a chat to get an official sort of... Because you'll get some tool... I think we could do a pretty good discovery of this and come up with some good strategies and whatnot on our own, I think. Right? But... I found when I was sat with the clinician, just getting that official answer, and for her pointing out some things that I've always felt bad about, she went, no, that's a thing of this, and that relates to this. She tied a few things together, and hearing it from her carried a different weight. The whole experience added something, and having it confirmed by someone who sees people every day, knows this subject backwards and forwards, even covered some of the things, that I'm... Because it's a spectrum of things. She went, well, these are the things that you're heavier than average on. These are the things that are a bit lighter than average. And, I had some quite high numbers in quite a number of pools. But I deliberately took down every single wall, threw away every single habit through the interviews, and I just acted my maximum self. Revealed every single one of my flaws, if you like, and got rid of all my habits. During them sessions, I was just raw me, because I wanted the right answer. Whatever that was, whether it was a yes or a no, whatever. You need to see me as I would be if I'd had none of these procedures in place that I've built over the years, and I turned them all off. All of it. Because I was interested in the answer, and in the end I got some graphs and stuff at the end, and you could look at it from one angle and say, well, look, I'm pretty severe in a few of these pots. However, not so you'd notice.
Yeah.
So, had I not built up some of the things, that would be quite intrusive in my life. But when I looked at it, I went, that doesn't interfere. Like, it's there, but it doesn't interfere. I'm like, well, then you should feel good about that, not bad about it. Because clearly, some of the things you're doing mean that thing never raises its head, or rarely does. That certain nervous tick, or this thing that would set you off, or that, whatever it is. No one notices, except you. So I try to take that as a positive. Say, well, all of this stuff works. So that means, 9 times out of 10, people don't notice. Unless you get to really know me. Unless you get to really know and you see some of my daft habits and see me in a range of situations, especially high stress ones, or when I'm Mr. Perfectionist trying to get something working. I can be an absolute arse to work with sometimes, but you'll always learn something. So what did you make of that as a bit of a process?
I thought it was fascinating. I mean, I have to say, a lot of the questions I would have thought, obviously it's me, I would have just been thinking, well, a lot of people think that like that.
Yeah, but it's enough of it.
Or is that because...
It's enough of it, though,
yeah.
and to enough of a degree, and for it to form a pattern. So I wrote down all the answers here, and, 5s and 4s, and so it seems that you either very are or you're not. You don't seem to have... You don't have a lot of grey area. There was 1, 3, and amongst that, the rest of them, it was either 2, 4, or 5. There was only 1, 3, and there's only one where you're middle of the road.
It's like when they used to talk about dyslexia, and I was convinced I wasn't, because it'd been portrayed as where you couldn't do maths and English, but I loved maths, and I had an affinity with mathematics and arithmetic.
It's the same with autism. Oh well, you
Yeah,
don't speak funny. Well, no,
yeah,
because not every autistic person's the same. Um,
yeah.
I happen to be on a linguistic branch where, for me, language is very important, and how it's spoken is also then very important. How fast you talk, how the intonation, how things are pronounced, all of that's very important to me. Whereas you get
Mm.
others with autism who just speak, and speaking's just a tool. Like how you say it doesn't matter, or they just don't get it. But there will be things that they can do with some other subjects that are like, yeah, I don't care about that. Like that doesn't work for me. So that there's a whole range of, but you might be very bad at one, very good at the other, mediocre somewhere along the way. So yeah, you could be excellent at maths because your brain gets numbers as symbols,
Yeah.
but doesn't get words as symbols and the connections between them. It's perfectly legitimate.
Yeah, I wrote to you about how I had this fear for many years about spelling my own name out loud.
I can't say my own name.
And
I've got to say it backwards. Surname first. I've got to say surname first,
yeah,
always. Can't say my name out loud.
yeah, and well, most of the time, I think most people don't bother with their middle name, unless they're asked for it. But the fact that for many times you're not asked for your middle name, and mine's
Yeah,
Terence.
you don't like people saying your middle name either, do you? I've noticed that.
No,
When
I
I've
was.
brought it up once or twice, you've kind of went, ooh. I was like, oh, that wasn't a good response.
This-
Ooh.
No, it's. I'm scarred from being a kid. The kids used to take the piss out of me. Pardon my French again. Sorry, Mum. But yeah, it's. I wouldn't say it was bullying, but every time it was sort of mentioned, it was like, oof,
Terence.
I don't know why. Yeah, Terry, all right,
He's a
Ted.
bit of a Terry.
Yeah,
I didn't realise that could be an insult until I worked at Park Dean. He's always a proper Terry. Like, what's a Terry? Well, you know a Terry, man. Bit of a Terry. I'm like, never heard that in my life. Never heard that
Terry Towel and Nappy.
in my life. Well,
Yeah.
he's a bit of a
Just
dafty.
just out of interest, the if I was going to do something about that, can you get it done through NHS? Can you
Yeah,
get it done
yeah.
privately?
So you get yourself a referral, because these sorts of things to do with neurology, you would need to see a specialist, and to get a specialist, you need a referral. So you can say to your
So
you can say to your GP, I had to do that. I badgered mine. He's like, no,
yeah,
these days we talk about labels and we need to label everything. And I went, it's got nothing to do with labels. By the end of it, his face was bright red. I could see because I was quite, I thought I was just being logical, saying, no, it's about this, I've researched this, and I've done that, and I want to know, can I split this down the middle? Because, I've spent a lot of my life in some very heavy depression, and I want to know how much of that is from all of the bullying and constant physical and mental assaults I had growing up, and how much of it is I just don't understand how the planet works. So how much is it? I want to separate neurology and psychology. Neurology, I can't always do something about, or I can leave that more long term because I'm like, well, it's the way I work, isn't it? Psychology, I can put right, because that's behaviours and habits and things that I've picked up. Some stuff I'm probably more likely to be able to correct. So this is what I explained to him. Look, I want to separate these out into two parties. Stuff I can sort of leave to one side and either accept that that's just the way I work, or I might be able to see that, oh, well, I've already got coping strategies for enough of that. So let's leave that on the shelf for a bit, and let's work with all this other stuff that's a bit bust, and things that I can actually fix, rather than saying, oh, well, dealing with the failure of, well, I can't seem to stop doing that. Well, what you don't know is your brain will always do that.
I've got a as part of the tour operating stuff I'm doing. I've got a trip up to Glasgow where the ferries come in. I've got to take them around sort of bits of the Lake District, and I need to go up there and practice what I'm going to do. Otherwise, I have this big fear of failure because I have to read from the script. And so if I've done the tour, done the script, and remembered some of it in my head, it'll just trigger me ad lib. So
I do that. I'll take visual cues. I do everything. Even when I'm going for job interviews, anything, I'll drive there, practice run, drive to whatever company I'm going to, look at the car park. These days, if I can't get there that day, Google Maps, put it on Street View, plan my whole route, drive it, and I'll go in front of the building so I know what the building looks like. I know where the door is. I know where the door is in relation to the car park, so I know what direction I've got to walk in, where's best to park. No surprises. All rehearsed.
Yeah.
All rehearsed in, and then I can
you
walk in with confidence.
Can you remember my phrase on surprises? So my phrase on surprises is only birthday and Christmas. I don't like any other surprises.
I'm generally the same. Yeah. Oh, let's go here. No, hold on a minute. What's there? Is it busy this time of year? What's that? What we're going for? How do I get there? How long does it take? Who's driving? What do we need? Are we going to eat when we get there? I hate it. I go nuts. You know, when I went out with my brother, went to see a comedian, and he went, don't eat, because there's a place there, we'll eat when we get there. Didn't eat when we got there. I was fuming. Spoilt me night. But because I had all these expectations, so I didn't eat, and I could have because there was time, and I went, no, I don't want to spoil it for them because I get there and don't order anything. Everybody else is ordering something, and I'm not hungry. I ate before I came, just in case. I didn't want to be that odd one out, so I went, no, I'll do what he said, and I'll turn up starving. They're all, it's just sandwiches, isn't that it? It's not here. Oh, we'll go and wait in the queue. Oh, look. And it took her an hour or something to get parked. Oh, well, we'll go here. No, not enough room. Let's go to the next one.
Yeah, so there's something about... I'll give you an example. The client I'm working with, he's not really following through on some of the agreements we make. So what I did was yesterday I said, what's the one non-negotiable for next week? And I want you to create a reward for that non-negotiable. And then I want you also to add on a stretching objective. So it's basically a non-negotiable that we both agree that it has to be done. And then there's a stretching one that I'm happy to negotiate that one.
It gives you room to overachieve.
Sorry?
It gives you room to sort of overachieve or to, like a target.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you're going with 3, 4, 5 objectives for a week, then you can easily get mixed up in the fog and you don't do any of them. So if we're focusing on one, if you were to give me a task to do and say, can you do that in the next couple of weeks, Mark, and practice that, but while we have this live episode with Kelsey and blah blah blah, I'll commit to something very specific. But if you give me 4 or 5, I probably would more than likely do none of them.
Yeah. So, and
I'm happy to be, if you give me a choice of 1 or 2, or you say, well, actually, I think you should work on this one, I'm happy to commit to, There's also my fear. I never mentioned that. Fear of disappointing people is massive for me.
Yeah.
So I would hate to disappoint you.
That's the same for me. I think that's one of the reasons why lateness is a thing for me, because it relates to disappointing the thing, the people I'm turning up for, but I also disappoint myself. And disappointment, for me, is probably stronger than anger. Like, I respond better if someone says, look, I'm disappointed that you didn't. Ooh, that hits me harder than someone shouting at us. Yeah. If you just say, look, I'm disappointed. Carl said that about you, actually. He says, you know what, my dad never hit us. He was never shouting at us. All he had to say was 2 words, and it would just cut us right to the core. He says, I'm disappointed. And he'd be like, oh, every time he said that. Absolutely. Yeah.
It's a huge word, isn't it? I mean, it's a big word anyway, but it's huge.
You see, but sometimes I wished he'd just shouted at us because I could have handled that. But as soon as you went, I'm just disappointed. he was like, oh, can't shake that. Can't shake. I mean, shouting, while you're shouting, it's horrible, but then it's over. Disappointment carries on. You've then got to earn something back, haven't you? Once you've disappointed someone.
Yeah.
You can just say sorry when someone's shouting and angry. Look, sorry, I didn't realise. Look, I'm disappointed, and they just walk off into the kitchen. Like, no. No, don't do that. Yeah. So, how about... See, I think I know how you'd approach this if it was me. You'd be telling me to spell my name, wouldn't you? Wouldn't you? You'd pick the one that I feel sort of about, and you'd go, you should approach that one. You should approach that one.
You see, I mean, what I would... If it's Mark Skipsey, that it's almost like it's a habit. It's drilled, but if you were to ask me to spell my full name, you will notice the stutter in the middle word.
So, how fluid do you think you can get in a couple of weeks?
So, do you want to just do a test now and
take a baseline?
Yeah,
take a baseline.
Yeah, so take a baseline. Yeah. So I'll do Mark Skipsey, and you can see how that is. MarkSkipsey. Yeah?
That's learned, isn't it?
Yeah. So now we're going MarkTrenceskipsey. And I'm having to close my eyes, aren't I?
Yeah, because you're having to visualise it, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I don't even know if I spelled it right.
I think you missed an R out.
Did I?
There's 2 R's.
No, I've only got one R. Yeah.
That's me.
T-E-R.
That's me, isn't it? That was me making assumptions.
I've just wrote it down. So it's T-E-R-E-N-C-E.
Aye. And you got it right. But I could see you were fighting something. You could see it on your face. What else? Maybe copywriting something. As it says you're copying from something, or reading something out.
Oh, I'd be happy to read something out, like now, and then read something out in a couple of weeks. Be happy to do that.
Then those two are sort of related things, aren't they? So, and see how that goes. And those things, I think, should have other benefits when you realise you can do them, and you work out a way of doing them.
Now, is it? I mean, the bit about reading something out that you've not rehearsed, that puts the fear of God into me.
Me too. Still to this.
But actually, that should be should that be the test? Do you give me something that I've not read before?
Yeah, you can.
So I should practice.
You should practice.
I should practice over the next couple of weeks, reading paragraphs and getting used to reading paragraphs. And maybe focusing on the words, focusing on the line, slowing myself down, and then
coming up with a reading strategy. Like how can I pick these words up quickly?
Yeah, the only thing we don't have on that example is we don't have a baseline measure to see if there's any improvement.
Because it would be a random text each time, right? So maybe it has to be something that's the same length, from the same book or something.
So what I could do for you is if you send me a paragraph, I'll record myself on my phone reading it for the first time.
Oh, like a voice message on WhatsApp.
Yeah. Oh, and I'll just send it to you, and we can play it on the video in a couple of weeks' time, and then I'll practice it.
Because you'll need to come up with a way of doing it between now and then, because you won't know what text I'm going to give you. But I will. Well, let's say it'll be. 3 lines? Something like that.
I tell you what we'll do.
3-4 lines.
So I'll choose a paragraph, and I'm going to give you a baseline, and I'm going to give you that same paragraph in 2 weeks' time because I'm going to practice it. But you're also going to give me a paragraph on the day.
So we can see practiced versus one you haven't seen.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. So I get my own test, but you get your test.
It's good.
Yeah.
Because there's going to be a difference between I'm now comfortable reading this thing to I've now created a process that allows me to read any paragraph.
Oh, guess. No, this is how we were so creative when we worked together. So we've just come up with a concept there. Now we've taken it to level 1. Now I'm about to take it to level 2. So level 2 is what I mentioned to you last week. I bought a book of poems. So I'm going to choose a poem from the poem book, and I'm going to read the poem as part of the
And
paragraph,
the language is
and then I'll read the poem out.
the language of poems is very different to reading from books and manuals and whatnot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll pick a poem. I'll
Yeah.
pick a poem for you to read
Yeah.
in a couple of weeks' time. Just like one of the paragraphs. And the paragraphs are generally quite short in poems, aren't they? So it'll be like 4 lines.
Yeah.
It won't be a massive string of stuff, but it will be enough
No.
to see the effect.
So just to clarify, I'm going to pick a poem, and I'm going to read it, and I'm going to send it to you, and that's my test. I'm going to do that. I'm not going to practice it. I'm just going to read it, and then I'm going to practice that poem over the next couple of weeks, and then I'm going to read you that poem live on the episode in 2 weeks' time. But at the same time, you are going to give me another poem on that episode, and I'm going to read that from scratch.
I'll copy and paste it whilst we're recording and say, here, read this. Just maybe it's the first paragraph of a poem and say, right, read that.
And then we should be able to tell the difference between my reading style from the first one to the practice one, and then giving me an unrehearsed one. I'm hoping I've created a strategy in the next couple of weeks to deal with it.
Yeah, well, you've created a target and a stretch. So you're going to have to come up with a strategy between now and then that helps you cope with an unknown paragraph. Which should help you then go on with any other sort of unknown paragraphs, I guess.
Here's a one. Robin told me this, and you probably know I haven't researched it. But from a dyslexia point, there's a particular font that makes it easier for me.
Yeah, we discussed that. Oh, it was weeks ago now, and it was before we hit the record button. You said, oh, there's this new dyslexia font. And when I looked at it, I was like, yeah, you can sort of see the way that it's shaped. It makes it so the letters can't really merge into each other. You know, they don't blur and jumble because they're all quite distinct in the way that it leans. Yeah, it was fascinating that. It was fascinating seeing it.
For somebody that, for some people that have got dyslexia, it might be interesting for us to test that. Like, to read a paragraph in normal font, flip it into dyslexia font, and then read it again.
Ooh. I could give you two paragraphs. One in a standard Arial font and another one in the dyslexia font. And see which one you... Ooh. I like it.
Yeah,
that's lush.
We're creating our own business
It's
ideas.
lush.
You know?
I love that.
Yeah.
I love it.
As you like to say to the audience, you know, we've got a couple of weeks of interesting stuff coming up, but then we've got maybe a revisit of this episode in a couple of weeks' time.
Yes. That'll be fascinating. Aye. Some nice follow-up. Some nice follow-up there. So we've got... we'll be recording our first guest next week. Next Freitag. Then, because it's the end of April already next week.
It is.
Utter bonkers, that. Utter bonkers.
Isn't it?
So, so we'll have that next week. Someone we've both coached talking about relationships and age differences. Then we'll have Anne the week after, who's another coach, another business coach and life coach and whatnot. So that's going to be a cool topic, talking about women in the workplace and changing roles and all of that. That'll be fun.
We've got a book.
Good.
We've got a book time for that one.
Yes, she wants to come in the following Friday, so it'll be Friday and Friday.
No, I mean time.
Yeah, I've got it.
O'clock.
I'll send you. I've got it in. I put it in my calendar to book it out, and she's accepted the appointment and whatnot. So I've booked it in. I will be speaking to Kelsey though to make sure she's still good for next Friday, because from those coaching for those coaching, sometimes she'll rock up. Must have infuriated you when she rocked up late and had all these stories about it. Aye, she can be very fluid, let's say.
Well, it's also the bit where, you know, some of us are in time and through time people. We're through time, so we're planners. But if you're an in time person, you'll probably have forgot.
Yeah, she's she's an in the moment sort of. Yeah, very much. Yeah, it's a fair point.
So it's like if you messaged her the day before, she's forgotten, she's got plans. But if you message her today and say, "Are you still all right for next week?" We get the answer.
Yeah.
That do we need to prep something else?
Well, when we catch up, we usually catch up either a Saturday or a Sunday night on stuff and things and whatnot. So I'll see which night she's free and do it this weekend and prepare her. Say, are you still good for this? Then we've got plenty of days to pick from our list, because we still got plenty. That list had 60 odd things on it, so we've still got plenty we can cover on there if all else fails. And then week after that we'll be back to you. Then week after that, maybe's. That live's doing really well. Like it just people just keep watching it. The numbers just keep, every day there's been more and more views of that live. So it seems to it's done well. People have listened to it, loved it. So it's worth doing another one.
We're pondering over a couple of other bits like book reviews and stuff like that. Aren't we?
Yes, and a website, official website coming up.
Well, you bought the domain, didn't you?
Yes, I've bought loosegadgets.com. I bought the co.uk just because it's good practice sometimes, so that someone else doesn't buy it and park it and then charge you the earth if you ever need to buy it, or set up like a spoof business on the co.uk. So if somebody accidentally, you could end up going to a fake version of the website if we end up popular enough for people to, create some spoof demand. I wanted to keep it, and then if you accidentally type in the co.uk, it'll redirect you to .com automatically. So, and then I'll put the shop and some other bits and some of our other ideas on there. I haven't started the work yet because I thought I should speak to you first rather than charge ahead like I normally do. I thought, no, hang on, I'll wait.
It was funny.
Wait Friday.
For 2 years, I've not listened to the weight loss course that I put on YouTube. And I listened to one of the episodes. I mean, it's only 7 minutes long, but I listened to one of the episodes yesterday, and some of it I enjoyed and some of it I cringed. So there's a bit of work to do.
Well, we've been smashing. I mean, we've got quite a lot of content, not just 15 episodes. We did some shorts and all sorts in between, so we've done hours of content since December 30th. So this has become quite fluid, I think, where we just sit in front of a camera and talk about stuff. We're not as nervous as we were in the beginning. So
no, exactly.
Right. Well, do some clicking on the likes and the subscribes, the follows, reviews. Leave some comments. We do get some, and we read them. We read them all. So chuck some more in. Other than that, we will catch you next week. Take care.